it's Jo from Minerva. Today we're going to do a sew along of a wrap skirt, but it's really interesting because it's a reversible wrap skirt. The pattern is the Agave jupe, so it's a skirt from the French pattern company Deer and Doe, and it's a wrap skirt with this little asymmetrical front on it. This is the back, this is the front, and then the lining on the inside can be reversible, so you can flip the skirt around and have a pattern on the one side and a plain on the other, which is really exciting me. But you can also just face the front if you want to, but if you can make a reversible skirt, why wouldn't you? All the items that I use are listed below. If you hover over them, they will go into your basket, but don't forget, if you're making the reversible one, you don't need the interfacing. The interfacing is only if you're making a single layer skirt with a faced front edge. I choose my cutting techniques based on the garment that I'm making at that moment. So today I traced off the pattern because I think I might want to make this for my daughter, because I think she would like it. So I've traced it off to keep the whole of the pattern piece. And also today I used pinking shears to cut, because you don't need an overlocker or any finishing on this skirt at all, because everything is enclosed. So I think, well, as long as I can just handle the fabric while I'm working with it, then I actually don't need to finish any of the edges. So today I'm using pinking shears. The fabric that I've chosen today is a linen and a floral lining mix. So I've chosen a black linen. You can see that linen finish there. And I'm going to line it with a Rose Hubble print. So this is a floral print. And when you're cutting out, there are a few things to note. So you need to decide if you're making a reversible skirt or the one with the facings, because you will need to cut out different pieces. The facing piece is a big long L shape, so you don't want to cut that out if you don't need it, because it takes up a lot of space on the fabric. So make sure that you read through the instructions first and all of the cutting lists and the cutting diagrams, so that you're not wasting any fabric and you're getting the pieces that you need. You also, if you're going to make the reversible skirt, which is what I'm going to continue talking about today, so I'm going to leave the facing one and I'm just going to talk about the reversible one. You will need all of the pieces in each fabric. So you will need a back and the fronts in lining, and you will need one set of waistbands in the lining, and then you will need a back and two fronts in the linen and a set of waistbands in the linen. You need to put all the markings on. It's really tricky to make sure that you don't get the opposite pieces the wrong way round. So make sure that you've read the instructions carefully when you're cutting out, so that you get a wrap that goes one way and a lining piece that matches it. Otherwise you might end up with your asymmetric point being on the wrong side. What would help that is if you put on the hip notch, and that tells you that that is, so there's my hip notch there, so that tells me that that's the outer sides of the skirt and not the inner flap fold. We can head over to the cutting table and I will speed it along, but you can see me cut out. There's some great tips popping up as I cut out. going to follow the instructions as if you were reading through them yourself so that you can go through the whole booklet. And the first thing we need to do is to make that asymmetrical front. So I'm going to follow version A, which is the reversible version. And on the facing pattern piece, it shows me how to trim off a piece of one of the sides so that I get a different shape for the left front as I do for the right front. I did show this briefly on the video, but you need to use this line here that was on the facing piece and was on the white pattern paper piece to make a cut along one of the skirts. I think it's the left piece that you have to do. So you draw that on, you can fold it and trace it with a pencil, you can use carbon paper, you can pin it and cut it. So however you've done it, I've decided that because I absolutely want both of my skirt pieces to be the same, I used the paper to take the piece off the linen, and now I've pinned them exactly together, and I'm going to use the main to cut the lining, because then I know that the two pieces are exactly the same. The first sewing part is to add darts. Now there's lots. There's 3 on one front, 3 on another front, there's 2 on the back, so you need to do all of your main pieces. And if you've got a plain fabric like me, you need to make sure that you're folding your darts the right way so that you don't end up with darts on the front. So again, keep it laid out like a flat wrap skirt, and then you can keep checking that you're getting the right sides the right way around. So the first thing is to sew your darts. Sew from the wide end to the narrow end, and don't go forwards and backwards on the point. Keep that nice and flush. There are 16 darts in the lining and the main, so you could do it a little bit like piecework. So if you get all your darts pinned, then sew them all, then tie them all, then snip all the threads, and then go and press them all. And then we're ready to start assembling the side seams. The next stage is to put your side seams together. So pin the side seams of the mains together and the side seams of the linings together. This is where your hip notch comes into play, because now you can make sure that you've got the right sides together. I even put a H on mine with some chalk to say hip, so that I definitely wouldn't put one of the front panel pieces against the hip. So I made sure I'd got it in the right place. I'm going to take a seam allowance, and the seam allowance is 5/8 of an inch, and it's really important that you do that because you want your two pieces to fit together exactly for when you bag it out. We've got 2 skirt pieces, a main and a lining, so we're going to match these up. Don't worry about matching the top waistband. If that's a little bit out or a little bit inaccurate, that's fine, but the side seam needs to be really accurate and along the hem. So I'm going to pin all the way down the side, along the bottom, and back up the other side. We're going to sew that accurately with the 5/8 seam allowance, and then we can turn it out, clip the corners, turn it out and press it. It's important when you press it to not allow any of the lining to roll forwards, especially on your centre fold. So that is all black. and the other side is all lining. Depending on what colour fabric choice you choose, you might have to sort of make a compromise. Like, I definitely didn't want the lining to curl around on black because it's very obvious. So if I did need to just roll it one way, I would definitely roll it towards the lining. And then you can see there we're getting the basic shape of the skirt, and now it's time to put on the waistband. The waistband is in 3 pieces. So there's a back waistband with notches on, and then there's 2 front waistband pieces, and they've got a notch on one end, so you know which way round to put the waistbands. And you will also have your markings for where you're going to put buttons, but you might need to try it on and sort of decide yourself where you want the buttons. So those are just a bit of a guide. You need that 5/8 seam allowance that we've been using throughout to sew the sides of the waistband together. Next part of the waistband is to attach the 2 pieces right sides together, and you're going to leave a 5/8 seam allowance at each end, and that's for finishing the waistband at the end. And we're going to run our 5/8 seam along the top of the waistband. Next, you're going to fold up with a iron press 5/8 seam allowance, so you'll have 5/8 of your main fabric left and 5/8 turned up, and you'll have your end free because you didn't sew right to the end. You left 5/8 at the end as well. And now it's time to add it onto the skirt. So you're going to pin the right side to right side waistband onto your skirt. So the right side of the skirt, the right side of the waistband, and you're going to leave that 5/8 hanging over the edge of your skirt. I'm going to match up the side seams with the side seam of the waistband and keep working the fabric all the way round. So you will attach the lining part of the waistband in the second run of the waistband. The first one is to attach the main fabric to the main fabric. This is where you need to be pretty accurate with your darts. So if you made your darts correctly, your waistband will fit. If you use the right seam allowances, then your side seams will fit. To finish off the ends, so this is the skirt lining inside, this is the waistband attached on the outside, you're going to fold the waistband with the right sides together and sew down here where you left the 5/8 seam allowance, and then you can make sure that you run that into your skirt so that it's a straight line. You need to do that on both ends of your skirt. Once you've trimmed the corners, I've just taken a little bit off the seam allowance as well, you can turn the waistband. I'm just using my seam gauge with the point turner on the end just to get a nice corner here, and then you can see that this is nice and flush here, and that's where your first button band placement is going to be. You can now flip the waistband down and completely enclose all of your lining. So nothing showing, that means it's completely reversible. Now it's up to you here. You can either hand stitch that down, or you can do a very careful stitch in the ditch from the right side, but obviously with black, I'm going to end up with a black thread showing on this side, so I think I'm going to hand stitch my waistband down so that I've got a completely reversible skirt. It's time for the fastenings, so you should have your tailor's tacks marking where the button holes go, but now's the time to try it on, fold it round and just see if those buttons are in the right place, and then you can make adjustments before you make buttonholes. Just make sure you put your buttonholes in the right place. So the buttonholes go on the non-pointy front band, and the buttons go on the panel that has the pointy front edge. It's very tricky for you to see because I've got my buttonhole there, but because I've got a linen on my right side, I'm just going to put a little bit of fray stop along on the wrong side. Well, I suppose there's not a right or a wrong side, is there, on a reversible skirt, but on the busier side, I'm just going to put a little bit of fray stop, and hopefully that will stop that linen side running too much. So I'm just popping a little bit on my finger and just rubbing that over there. It looks a bit gluey, but then when it dries it sets clear. Time to sew the buttons on, and then we can try it on both ways. That's the Agave skirt finished. You can see that it's really versatile. You can wear it in the winter and the summer. It will take you through lots of seasons. You can wear it with thick tights and boots and shoes in the winter, and you can wear it as a floral skirt in the summer and spring with pumps or sandals. Other combinations of fabric you could try are denim. So you could try a denim solid side and a floral inside. You could try different types of linen, so you could have one lot of linen on the outside like a plain one, and then you could have a striped or a gingham one on the inside. Gingham would be good if you had a gingham as your lining and a denim or a plain poplin or drill on the other side. So you could really play with your combinations. Baby cord is another good one, because baby cord makes really great summer skirts, but when they're not lined, they feel a bit sort of like they're sticking to you. So if you had baby cord on one side and a light cotton lawn on the other side, you'd get a much lighter skirt. All the products that I've used are listed below, so you can hover over that and they go into your basket, and then you can mix and match your fabrics and your notions. You only need the interfacing if you're doing the facing version, not the lined version, and you'll need to obviously match your buttons for your fabric choices. Thanks very much for watching. Come back again for a sew along soon.